Hello YouTube subscribers, fans, and exhibitionists. Just kidding. So, as y'all might know, this is a Z14 Kawasaki Ninja Zx6R, or better known as 636. I've had this bike for almost 2 months now, and I've been enjoying every minute of it. I thought I might share with you my 2-month review of my bike, just as a little refresher. I did do a little first impressions, but I thought I might give you a full impression of it right now. Now, as you see in my channels, my earlier videos, I upgraded from an Suzuki Zx636, and it was a 2005. And of course, that was my first bike ever. And this is, of course, my second bike ever. Let me tell you, the power difference does not compare. Oh, I tell you what. It's so smooth on the throttle. Oof, 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 oof. The seat position is actually not too bad. It's actually more comfortable than the my old bike, SV650. I do have my girlfriend on the back of this bike, and compared to my old bike and this bike, oh, I tell you what. The power difference, I weigh about 240 and she weighs about 140, and on this bike I don't even notice her weight. On my old bike I did, I noticed the power difference, but on this bike I do not notice it at all. This bike is just so much powerful that stupid flying ant or something on my hand. Back to the bike at hand. So that being said, I love takeoffs, and the sound is amazing from that Two Brothers exhaust. I would also like to share with you on why I chose this bike over the rest of the 600s. Apart being a Kawasaki, my first choice was a Yamaha R6, which I thought it was really cool because, especially the 2014 or 2013, 14 is a white and blue, and I really like those colors, and I was kind of basing it on colors. And, green and black was not my first choice of colors, but it has greatly shown on me how it just, I'm glad I got green and black, and I wasn't basing the Yamaha R6 on just the color alone, because I was totally incorrect on I'm glad I chose this bike over the Yamaha R6, and there's a guy on YouTube called Troublemaker, and this is also a shout out. I'll give you a link of his video on the difference between this bike and the R6. He's ridden both, so he is very knowledgeable on both. This is the only super sport I rode, so the only thing I can give you is the details on why I chose it on the other bikes compared to my first impressions, to be honest with you, because this is the only one I rode. I didn't ride the other 3 Japanese sport bikes, and I'm going to be comparing the CBR 600, the Gixxer 600, and of course the Yamaha R6. So let's begin here. I'd like first to begin on the bodywork. The bodywork is very stylish. The Gixxer is pretty cool, although most of the videos I see on Gixxers, you got to cut out some of the fairings for the frame sliders, and I don't like that. That's too much work for me and more likely to get damaged. So that was a turn off if you have to cut off, you know. Plus, there's too much on the road. I tell people that they're the Honda Civics of sport bikes, which they are. They're just too much of them, you know. And the one reason the Gixxer headlights, you know, is one, I could deal with it, but not the oval shape. There's an oval shape on it instead of like a curvy, like the 07s, 08s have, which I do like the older models, but other than that, nah. I like this headlight assembly better. The parking lights make this bike look amazing, especially if you have HIDs, which you've seen in my earlier videos. Oh, does not compare at night even. It just looks sick. Looks like a monster going down the road. And it is a Ninja. So, you know, the R6 has a pretty good body style. That's one reason why I wanted it in the first place, but I've also heard it's a pain in the rear to take off. The CBR 600 was not much of a fan. Of the fairings because it just looked plain to me. Just because of the white picture. I'm gonna see if I can try to put some pictures in, but or you can just Google them. But they're just like white, or you know, just especially the white one with the graphics, so you can definitely tell better. It's just looks like one piece. It's like, what? You know, it's not one piece, but you know, their older models are perfectly fine. The 12s and below are perfectly fine bikes. They have pretty cool looking fairings, but not the newer ones. So that turned me off from there. And plus you had the aluminum colored swing arm on the Honda, which was like, really? You have a black bike with a black engine and you have a silver color swing arm? Really? That just doesn't make sense at all. The tail exhaust, couldn't complain about that. Doesn't matter. I don't care about the tail exhaust location. The other Japanese bikes are just as fine. The fairings were pretty cool looking, you know. I couldn't complain too much. Now, the one thing I noticed when I bought this bike that I did not find out until I bought it and I was riding it. Get on here for a second. I tell you, some of these reviews of bikes are not very accurate. You know, I like to have fine details, and especially some of these other ZX6R reviews out there. No offense to y'all, no offense, but I would have liked to have seen some of the gauge features, which I'm going to show you now. So I didn't know this. I tried to find the other 600's specs on the gauges. I couldn't find anything, so I can't really reference it. But I know the Yamaha R6 gauge cluster is kind of lower tech. Of course, it has a speedometer, has a track meter or whatever, tachometer, digital tachometer. Pardon me, analog tachometer. I like the analogs a lot better. But not very design key, because you know the Yamaha R6 has not had a body lift in like 7 years, which this is. I found that out. I was like, what the heck? So, I mean, the R6 does not have a gear indicator. The CBR 600 does not have a gear indicator. It, however, has a fuel gauge. But why do you need a fuel gauge on a Super Sport? A commuter bike, maybe, but not really, because I use the Trip A as mine fuel gauge. When it gets to 132, my fuel light goes on. So, can you easily predict when you need more fuel? Yes. On a fuel gauge, not really, because there's very lot. It could be inconsistencies, because you know your tank could be big on the top end, so it's going to drain a little bit faster, drain a little bit slower, and then when it gets to halfway, it's going to start bottoming out, you know, vice versa. And your trip is the most accurate thing than a fuel gauge. So, now this is cool. I didn't know until I bought this bike. It has the instant miles per gallon meter. I'm not sure if you can see that. So it updates every 10 seconds on my instant miles per gallon. The second thing is my overall. So I'm getting about 46 miles to the gallon on this tank. Clock, of course. And I have 712 miles on the odometer. And of course my trip A, 105 miles, so another 30 miles I'm going to have to refuel. And, you know, speedometer, fuel temp, and then also down here it'll have a, I forgot the exact term for it was on the manual, but it's like economy meter or something. Just shows you how much, just shows you peak economic for fuel miles. So nothing too complicated on that. The Zx636 is the only one that would compare to this bike. I'm not sure if they have the miles per gallon or whatever, but they do have a gear indicator. It looks really nice. Looks like a decent gauge, really. The Yamaha R6 has a little bit bigger cockpit. This has a little bit smaller, so if you have bigger hands, I can't complain anything else. The only thing I want to point out, the CBR 600 was that. This is another reason why I didn't buy the Yamaha, the Honda CBR 600. For taller guys like me, this is a disadvantage, very disadvantage. Alright, this brake reservoir, you see right here, the Honda CBR 600, the 13s and above, windscreen goes like even more aggressive than mine, the other ones. So it's right on the money with the brake reservoir and on the gauge. So if you're a taller guy, if you're, you know, I'm about 6 foot, and if you're around 6+, you're gonna start having trouble seeing that instrument gauge. And not to mention, if you have a dark smoke or plastic dip like I do, you won't even be able to see it. So someone like, say, 6'5", no, you might as well not buy a new CBR 600 because of that reason. I promise you won't even be able to see the gauge, especially for 6'5". So that's another turn off. I wanted to point that out specifically. Now I really like the taillight. That's one reason why I bought it too. I'm just going to show you my license plate because I don't care. I have nothing to hide. Zombie Outbreak Response bike. My exhaust is perfect. Now I have seen videos on Sweat Beast that it would be a pain to change out the exhaust, especially if you have tail exhaust, but I think it'd be well worth it. And of course, I almost forgot to mention, this bike has flush turn signal mounts. You can't beat that. That's like a $60 savings right there, especially if you want a nice one like Hot Bodies or something. I would have bought Hot Bodies if I bought the R6. It already has flush mounts. Look at that. So you can't complain. Come on. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. Dual disc brakes, of course. Has a slipper clutch. The only slipper clutch, I think, in my bike class. It just prevents you from downshifting. Well, if you downshift too much, then you'll bottom out. This slipper clutches prevent that. You can Wikipedia that. I'll probably put a Wikipedia post on there. And moving on, this is the only bike in its class of the 600s that actually has traction control, which I found it to be a nice modern electronic feature. Two of the 1000s do not even have traction control, and that is of course, the CBR 1000 and the Gixxer 1000 do not have traction control. The R1 and the ZX10R definitely have traction control. Although, if I ever bought a 1000, I either buy a Yamaha R1, or personally my favorite would be the BMW 1000 RR. Or is it R? I don't know. The sport bike version. It looks electronics on it. BMW just knows how to. So, if you have any questions, concerns, or comments of my video, if you're thinking this is way too long and I overestimated myself, just, push a like or dislike, but don't dislike, just go ahead and like it. And as always, if you have any questions, I will be glad to hear them and answer them. I do like to help other people out, so shoot me a message. Oh yeah. And as always, I will see you later.